Hey, it's Courier Girl, and I'm sitting here in my dad's building reflecting on things, and I want to talk about money, miles, and time because that's something that's been on my mind lately about this whole courier business. So, I did a video a couple weeks ago about what I made in 2020, and somebody in the comments asked me, how many miles did I drive and how many hours did I work? And I looked at the numbers and I looked at the stuff that I gave my tax person for taxes and all the other notes that I made and all the stuff about hours worked. And the short answer is I'm not really sure. It seems like I worked way too much for the amount of money I made. So I want to go over this, and maybe the more experienced courier people can weigh in on this and tell me what I'm doing wrong, if I'm doing something wrong, and maybe my thoughts, my kind of meandering thoughts, will give some of the newer people or people thinking about getting into this business something to think about. So let me just start with the numbers, okay? So if you remember from that video, I made about $14,500 gross, and after expenses, gas, supplies, etc., I made about $11,500 last year. And if you didn't watch that video, that was only for the last 3 months and 10 days of the year. I started September 21st. So you would have to multiply that out to get an estimated yearly income, if that makes sense. All right. So I clocked a total of, between my van and my car, like 35,000 miles. Crazy amount in just 3 months. That's like over 10,000 miles a month. And so I came down to, if I figured on the gross, I made 41 cents a mile, and if I figured on the net, I made 33 cents a mile. And that, in my mind, kind of sucks. But I don't know if it's accurate, and that's the problem. And the same with time. I don't even know how much time I spent because I just calculated how much time I was available, and I'll get into that in a minute. So let me give you an example to kind of set the stage of why I'm confused about this. So let's say that you are doing a route and you get paid $100, okay? And you drive 100 miles a day, and it takes you about 5 hours to complete the route with, stops and everything else. So based on that, you made $1 a mile or $20 an hour. Now it's before expenses. And that's an okay baseline, but it's never written in stone that way. Let's say that you're doing your route and there was construction and you had to go around some stuff, or there was an accident, or you had to do an extra stop that day, or you forgot something and you had to go back. Lots of different things happen. Now, let's say you had to drive 120 miles that day and it took you 6 hours to complete your route. Well, you're still only getting paid $100. So now you're at 83 cents a mile and 16.67 per hour. Okay, let's say that you only drove 90 miles that day. Let's say one of the places you go to was closed, so you didn't have to go, and so you only drove 90 miles, and it only took you 4.5 hours because you got all the green lights and traffic flowed, and everyone was quick at the stops, and it was amazing. Well, now you've made $1.11 an hour, or 22.20, or $1.11 a mile, sorry, and 22.22 an hour. So you can see that it's really hard to, it's not like you're going to a job and clocking in and clocking out and you can calculate how much you made. It's different because there are so many variables in the delivery business. So I've done routes where in a perfect world I've made $30 an hour, and I've done those same routes and I had like 10 extra stops and I got hit by a train. One night I got stopped by a train for 30 minutes. Everybody was stopped. We couldn't go anywhere. And because of that and some other things, I was like 2 hours late getting done. And so my $30 was well under $20 by that point. And It's just how it works. It's the nature of the job. So when you ask me how many miles or how many dollars I'm making per mile, like what's my rate per mile, it's hard for me to say. I can average it. I can say, okay, this route is usually 150 miles and I get paid $120 for it, right? And then you can take $120 divided by 150 miles and you get 80 cents a mile. But that's average. That's not going to be every single day. And I can say that I usually start at 8 in the morning and I'm done at 2 in the afternoon, and therefore I've got so many hours in, 6 hours in. So my $120 is $20 an hour. But again, it doesn't always work. And then that doesn't even take on demand work into account. So on demand or on call is when you sign up for a certain time slot and you take whatever runs are given you in that time slot. So today I am on from noon to 8 and it is about 12:30 here and I haven't had any calls yet. Now I could start getting calls and get calls all day long, or I could sit here for 2 or 3 hours and not get any calls, or I could get a couple and then not get any, and you don't know. So how do you calculate that? Do you only calculate the time you're running, or do you calculate the time that you are sitting here waiting? Like, that's 8 hours. If I only get 2 runs and I only make $30 or whatever, let's say I make $32. That's $4 per hour for the time I'm sitting here. But I could also get 10 runs and be busy all day long. You don't know. So I was pretty much calculating like all of my hours, like what the time I'm sitting here, I was calculating that. The time in between routes, that's another one. So let's say you get done with something at 2 and your next thing doesn't start till 4. Do you count those 2 hours? Do you count the commute time between one route to another? So let's say you get done at 2 and it takes you a half an hour to drive to your next start point. Do you count that 30 minutes? And where do you count it? Do you count it on the first route or the second route? Or do you split the difference? I mean, these are things that I think about probably because I'm a numbers person and I did accounting for 35 years, so I'm just thinking way too much detail. And also the commute time. So if you're working a job and you leave at 7:30 in the morning to be there by 8, well, that's a half an hour on the road, and you work till 5, and then it's another half an hour to get home. And let's say you're working 40 hours a week and you're making $15 an hour, that's $600, okay? So that's pretty easy to figure out, right? $15 an hour times 40 is 600. But now you've just added an extra 5 hours on for commute time. So now it's $600 divided by 45 hours. So now you're only making $13 an hour if you count commute time. And do you? I mean, do you do that when you're a delivery driver? I mean, I know there are different tax implications, and this isn't about taxes. This is about me figuring out in my head for my personal information. If I wasn't doing this delivery, I would not have left my house. So I count commute time. If it takes me a half an hour to get to my first delivery, that's time I'm working. If it takes me 2 hours to get to my first delivery, that's time I'm working. I mean, there was one day that I left my house and drove 300 miles just to pick up something. So it wasn't 300, it was like 280. But anyway, I counted that time. Do you only count the time that you pick up and then deliver to the destination? These are things that I don't know. So you could drive yourself nuts, and I was driving myself nuts, and I just said, stop it. I'm not going to do that because I have to feel like, number one, I enjoy the work. Number two, I'm happy with the amount of money that my paycheck is for the amount of time worked. If I start getting unhappy with a certain job or a certain type of work, then I need to make a change and I need to start doing something else. If I get unhappy with the amount I make for the hours put in, then I have to either do something else or talk to the people I'm contracted with. For instance, I had one route a long time ago that was pretty straightforward. I was picking up stuff and then I was delivering stuff, but it fit in my car and it wasn't a lot of strain. Well, over time, these places got busier and busier, and now the person doing it now, it's not me anymore, could fill up a van with supplies and stuff. Well, all of that work and taking 2 or 3 trips into each place and having more stops at it and stops rearranged, is it still worth the same amount of money? I mean, I don't know what that person's getting paid, but if I was doing it, I would have to renegotiate and say, hey, the volume is double what it was before. We need to do something with the amount I'm getting paid. And these are the things that I'm learning as I get more experienced in this delivery thing. I have to feel good about it. The people that I'm working for have to feel good about it. It has to be a win for everybody all around, or it's not worth it to me to do it. And I have turned down a couple jobs lately because I just felt like the stress they were going to put me under, the volume of business for the amount of money and the time that it was going to take and the scheduling, it just didn't work for what I'm doing today. So I do expect this year, because I'm being more strategic about it and I'm um, learning to work things out and I'm really paying attention to my quality of life, not just the numbers. I think what's going to happen is I'm going to end up making more money per mile and more money per hour on average than I did in the beginning. Because in the beginning, like I told you in another video, I just said yes, yes to everything. And also, I wasn't some days really on it. Like some days I would just lollygag if the route didn't matter. Um, and now, if I'm doing that, I understand that I'm making less money because it's taking me longer. And I also understand that the quicker I can get done, the more I can do my own stuff. So I don't lollygag anymore. Not that I was lazy, it's just some days, some days you're slower and some days you're faster. And I wasn't pushing my own butt on a slower day, so that racked more hours up for me. Anyway, that's it. I'm sorry I didn't have a definitive answer. I hope that this helps some people out. Again, if there are more experienced people who can set some guidelines or lend some clarity to it, I would love that. If you want to put that in the comments below, or if you want to make a video on it and put the video link in the comments below so that we can all benefit, that would be awesome. So thanks so much. This is Courier Girl out, and I will see you on the road.